So we're going to go way back in history for a minute and look at some of the early ideas about the building blocks of matter. So Leucippus and Democritus lived a long, long time ago, 5th century BC. What would that be, the 4th century BC? Have you ever heard of those guys? I hadn't before I read this book. They were actually the first individuals to propose that matter was composed of small, indestructible particles called atoms. They called them atoms. Democritus wrote, "Nothing exists except atoms and empty space. Everything else is opinion." So they said there's lots of different kinds of atoms. They're different shapes and sizes. They move randomly through empty space. They were actually mostly correct. Have you heard of Plato and Aristotle? Right? Yeah, we know these guys. They were living in a similar time period, and they believed that matter had no smallest parts, that you could just infinitely divide something. This was back in an era of philosophy where people sat around and thought about stuff. There was not a scientific approach to learning. So Plato and Aristotle said, no, everything's composed of 4 substances: fire, air, earth, and water, and it's all some combination of that, which we now know is not correct. So there was no experimental way to test these different ideas. So it basically became a popularity contest, and Aristotle's view prevailed. It's like, but he was wrong. But everybody believed him. So science was set back 2,000 years. Dang. Where would we be if people had listened to Democritus? I don't know. So the scientific approach to studying the physical world was really, really important, because now when people had ideas, they could be tested, and we could have some rationale for believing that this is true or not true. So John Dalton was one of these scientists. He was an English chemist, 1766 to 1844. And he offered evidence that supported those ideas of Leucippus and Democritus. So he had some evidence, but the debate continued until about 1905, when Einstein had his theory explaining Brownian motion. Then people were like, okay, I think that's right. Okay, 1905. That's really not that long ago in the whole scope of human history.